OpenAI is going to the major leagues. The DOJ decided to play duck hunt, and we have one big problem. It's Duo. These stories and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP. Enhance your client's communication abilities with our VoIP solution, featuring integrated billing, on-demand training, and live US support. Collaborate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams integration and put your entire phone system in your pocket with MoveEx. Improve your offerings and increase profitability with reliable service for 1/10 of the average MSP acquisition cost. To learn more, visit oit.co or dial 844-CALL-OIT.
Good morning and welcome to the September 1st episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. My name is Tony Francisco, and hosting today, Tom.
How you doing, Tony?
Tom Lawrence. I'm so excited. People can't see it, but I'm looking at you. Tom Lawrence is co-hosting again today, and I'm really excited about this. Tom, how the heck are you doing?
I am much drier than you.
Just throws the punch right out of the gate.
It's a nice warm 72 degrees here in Michigan.
So for those of you who don't know, we just had a little bit of rain and water over here in Tampa, Florida. A little hurricane passed through. I woke up at 7 or just before 7 o'clock in the morning with a few inches of water in my house, which was a very, very interesting way to start the day. Had everything cleaned out early. Was very productive by the end of the day. And but Tom, let's get away from hurricanes. Let's talk about food and technology.
Yeah. I'm hungry.
So there is a story right now that's in entrepreneur.com, and it talks about IHOP joining with Google Cloud. They're partnering with Google Cloud. This is awesome and terrifying, where they are now providing personalized food recommendations for customers based on their previous orders and preferences. So for example, if you have ordered spicy foods in the past, AI might suggest IHOP's new Poblano Eggs Benedict. And so there's a whole chief marketing officer from IHOP that's involved, and he's mentioning that there's significant shift towards AI, but this is where we go to that interesting concept. Tom, I believe you were the one that posted this, where the Flex tape, the Flex Seal tape.
Yeah.
Were you the one that created that? Were you the one that created?
About the AI and to slap AI on it.
Oh,
yeah.
so our business model is failing. Slap AI on it. Look at it, fix the leak. Look at that. There's no problem.
Yeah,
Is this what's going on here?
Yes, I really feel that, because me and my son are regulars at a couple restaurants, and I love it because we walk in, and only if there's a new waitress or the trainees there, the other waitress will stop them. They don't need a menu. That's what she'll say. And she'll say the usual. And I'm like, yeah. And she'll look at my son, 1 or 2 orders, and it's of bacon because that's what he wants when he sits down. And he's like, yeah, 2 orders today. Like, that's all they have to ask. They already got the hot chocolate going and setting down. We're such regulars. You don't need an AI for that. Turns out, if you have a good wait staff and a good restaurant, they'll know the customers, and treat them right. Why waste money on all this AI stuff? And I'm a tech guy. I love tech things. This is dumb.
But hold on. Before we jump off this, because you and I could talk about this, because I love the way you and I have completely different perspectives. So from your perspective, I totally agree with that. However, what about the pedestrian that doesn't go there often, ever, and has other orders outside of IHOP, and they don't know what the regular is in IHOP, and they're looking for some suggestions? What are your thoughts on that? Is this where it's more applicable?
It might be, but I still think a person guides you through your food journey a little bit better, figuring out what do you like. And when it comes to food, the majority of people, me kind of an exception, I like more variety, but the majority of people do like it kind of the same thing. I don't think you need an AI to predict that wherever you take my wife, she likes a couple different things that she will order on the menu. So some people are just like that. I have several friends, and my son's a perfect example of, I don't care where you go. He knows he only likes like these couple foods. He's kind of a picky eater. So yeah. I think people know their food journey. I don't think it's like looking for a reason to use AI. I just think there's better uses for it.
Slap that flex tape on there. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to get you in the news. We wouldn't be talking about IHOP here on a tech channel. So mission accomplished if it was to get in the news.
Exactly. Hey, you know what? We have a lot of news to go through. So let's get into the news. And jumping into my first story from VentureBeat.com, OpenAI has introduced ChatGPT Enterprise, aiming to capture the business market in generative AI. While competitors like Cohere, Anthropic, Microsoft Azure, and Meta's Llama 2 are already in the space, ChatGPT's prior success with 100 million users might give it a distinct edge. The Enterprise version offers advanced security, unlimited access to ChatGPT 4, extended context in Windows, and advanced data tools. The company emphasizes data security with encryption and compliance in SOC 2 Type 1 standards. However, a recent KPMG study revealed that 60% of US executives anticipate a year or two delay before implementing generative AI. So, Tom, this is where we get into we jump right in from IHOP and the pancakes, AI slapping.
We hopped right over to this topic. I get
it. We hopped right into this one. Is this just another use of AI, or is it them taking their time, specifically ChatGPT, taking their time before they stepped foot into the enterprise market, and they're doing it correctly? Everyone else just jumped right in head first. IHOP maybe took its time, or maybe just jumped right in. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think they're going to do it right? Do you think they're going to do it better? Do you think they're just doing the exact same thing?
I think it's such a new place everyone's entering with it. It's hard to really give a solid answer on that. I keep thinking we've reached peak AI hype, but 2 minutes ago we were talking about IHOP, so I didn't see that one coming before I read it in the news. But back to the topic here, I want to say a lot of companies are looking to be first because no one wants to be last. No one wants to adopt these technologies last. So there's definitely reasons to latch onto it, because if this lives up to the hype, it is a great massive increase in efficiencies. It's the same as the Industrial Revolution. You either had the machines and could mass produce, or you didn't. Is this next pivotal change in how we do things efficiently? It's proven to be really effective at some things, maybe less effective at others, and definitely hallucinates every now and then and gives us some really weird answers. But there's nonetheless a really strong use case to use it. I think Microsoft's doing probably the best. I mean, it's going to go down as a big, huge, like when you look at the arc of history, I think Microsoft did a good job investing in there and their rapid integration into the Office tools and some of the add-ons that they're going to do. I've played with some of these AI tools that do things like generate kind of on the fly presentations for you. I look at it more of a guiding hand for the tools of being able to generate images faster, or I've done some presentations that were a lot of fun where I have people throw out words at me and I had them generate a graphic that I'd say will not exist before we start this talk. And so I've shown a lot of people how that can be, and people go, wow, that's a lot of fun. The last one was a cow dancing on the moon in a tutu. Turns out that image did not exist before my talk, and now it does. So, but seeing the power of AI and the way it can solve problems and look for patterns in a way similar to the way people do, and putting that power in hands, I think it's going to be huge. Getting it into the corporate world and a more, especially when you said those magic words, SOC 2 compliance, getting some confidence that it's not going to leak our data everywhere. I think that's the right move to get the confidence of the business world and take advantage of it. And all the businesses are looking for what's our next edge. So they're all going to definitely jump on it.
I think you hit a lot of points on the head. I am going to say it is probably time to abandon dignity and embrace the reality of the situation. AI at IHOP is required. I'm 100% for it. I'm totally kidding. I think this is such a huge topic, and it literally ends exactly where it started. This is so new. it's very difficult to make a judgment or a forecast, but we can certainly predict that there's a lot more ahead. Yeah. However, if this is done correctly from the beginning and we structure this the right way, it could go incredibly well for everyone. So with that, we would talk about a lot of the quacky ideas out there. There's a ton of quacky ideas. Some of them have to be shut down. And I think, jumping into the next story, you may have something about that, right?
Absolutely. The FBI announced today a disruption of the Qakbot network in an international law enforcement operation that not only seized the infrastructure, but also uninstalled the malware from affected devices. And I know a bunch of nerds did this because they called it Operation Duck Hunt, and I am absolutely here for that. Like, the name of the project was awesome. This is a really interesting, and this kind of builds on what happened in Hafnium with the Exchange incident, where, well, because we can, should we go in and disable these infections? And I think it's a good idea here. The Qakbot has been notoriously as a way to get into these networks. It's used by lots of the ransomware games. This is a just blight on our tech industry of things we have to deal with, of dealing with Qakbot. It's been around forever in name, but it's actually kind of morphed into something worse every time there's a new version. So getting rid of this, someone may point out, and I'm certainly one who's posted jokes about it, yeah, you throw one out, another one starts, but these disruptions are great towards pushing us towards a better future. They do have an impact, even if it's short term, but it's showing that there's a lot of effort, that there's real talent going after and being more on a little bit of an offense from the FBI side and the global security side from leaders saying, yes, we're going to address this and we're going to face this head on.
I have a lot to say about this. I have been told, for those of you who know my background, I worked with the DOJ for quite a bit, and they spearheaded this, and huge tip of the hat to them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You started off the conversation with, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And the answer is absolutely. Now, I think there's a lot of variables that could also happen, like, why did you kill this? Our entire structure was generated, structured on this one keystone that you happened to pull that had nothing to do with X, and it caused an avalanche of complication. But everything has a cost. And I do believe that the actions that have been taking place was to remove this Qakbot, to kill this particular virus that was just going around, not necessarily unstoppable, but it was tough on the industry as a whole, was just another layer in the stratification of the problems that we're dealing with. And if we're starting to strip them away in less of a reactive of let's talk about it and keep our fingers crossed that hope people take action, to now reactive with an execution coming from the top, that is a good sign for me. That makes me feel like the government is not actually just aware of the problem. They're not just creating a vision of a solution, but they have now taken their first few steps forward on a path to remediation. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have peripheral impact because of the negative impact. And I want to be very clear on that, because there is going to be some somewhere, I can't believe they got in our system that means X. Okay, everything has a problem, everything has a cost, right, and there's going to be problems occurring. But I truly think this is a huge win for everyone, moving in the right direction. Tom, what are your thoughts? Is there something I'm missing here?
No, it is really a tough call. It was a problem we had exasperated when we first dealt with this head on with the Exchange and Hafnium problems. Can they go in? Can they remove these infections? And you can go back further to the anonymous person. I wish I could remember the name of the story. About 5 years ago, he called himself the vaccine of the internet. It was an anonymous hacker who went around just nuking things that were open. Because he was so annoyed by all the botnets that when he would find these problems, they weren't infected. He would just nuke things. He's like, I don't want more botnets. I'm just going to destroy. I mean, this was obviously on the far side of this illegal, but these are people who aren't patching equipment. And there's one of two outcomes. I nuke them, or they become part of a larger botnet. And we've even seen where botnets patch to stop other botnets getting in there. This is a feature some of them have, where they would, I believe they were doing it with the Exchange, like they would patch the Exchange server so someone else couldn't knock them out of it. So this is just, it's kind of it's a giant nightmare. It's one of the reasons, if you look at the bigger picture, especially some of the IoT policies that we're seeing from our government that are very well founded, where they say automatic updates aren't an option for you to build something now. It is a feature, or it will not make the list. Some of the new QA stuff that they're doing, I don't know if you've seen this, they're coming up with some standards, I think that are really good. They're very sensible. We're seeing a lot of progress where standards led going, hey, we have to have these things auto update. Because honestly, we got to look at the fundamental problem. We have a lot of things out there that we expect people to patch. They don't. The reason Fortinet is on top of the constant list that CISA has is not because there's not a patch for it. It's because people aren't applying the patch to it. So
Absolutely.
Auto patching is kind of one of those things that we want to see more on devices, but that's not where we are for devices we are dealing with that are full of quack bots and just making a lot of noise out there. But Operation Duck Hunt, though, hands down, I'll start with the name being awesome. I just want to say it one more time. That's how I know some nerds are running it.
Well, as someone that comes from, for those of you who know me, the hosted exchange world, racks and racks, rows and rows of racks of servers just hosted exchange. That was my past. I put those in myself personally until I actually had a team doing that. And when these bots came out, terrifying. And so the question was, do we do the updates and risk everything crashing because we don't know what the updates are going to cause? Or do we start tightening up the front end and we look at, there's content filtering, there's payload inspection, there's, IP reputation, there's heuristics, anomalies, all that fun stuff, just because we don't want to patch because we don't want the problem to occur. So what I'm doing is I'm exposing to everyone the other side of it. It's not that they're just too lazy. There actually could be a reason that they don't want to do this, but it doesn't excuse the fact that it's not patched, and the terror that's constantly going through every admin's mind, constantly thinking about this process. But Tom, you and I have to talk more about the auto updates and your Linux servers. You're like, just auto updates and patch. I don't have these problems, and everything's safe on your side, right?
Everything's safe on my side. And Tony, I was thinking we make such a good dynamic duo here. Let's talk about Duo and some outages that they've had recently that are causing some problems.
We can talk about that. Absolutely correct, Tom. And in my next story from darkreading.com, several universities faced login issues due to performance problems with Duo, Cisco's authentication service. The outage lasted 5 hours, caused by application latency. The incident underscored the importance of backup plans for two-factor authentication services. Andres Sir of Forrester Research highlighted the potential operational disruptions without alternative authentication methods. Steve Wan from 1Password suggested using time-based one-time passwords, as they don't rely on a single service point and remain operational during outages. Duo provides guidelines for applications during outages and emphasizes continuity based on risk assessments. Tom, this is where we talk about fun stuff. So we are huge fans of authentication methods.
Yes.
And yes, and huge fans of ways to get around authentication methods.
Yes.
No, I look at you like, yes. So Duo, I have mixed emotions about Duo.
Yes.
In theory, there's so much agreement here. In theory, it was a great place to start. They didn't really progress past what they could have done. They
Correct.
could have created password rotation policies. They could have created complete passwordless solutions that don't require Duo and just a simple biometric akin to your YubiKey. They could have done this in an autonomous SSO/OAuth based solution on the back end to AD to whatever you're using on the back end for your identity management server. They could actually force the password rotation policy there. They can enforce it while creating the MFA component on the front end, regardless of the service that you're trying to access. They could have done that, and they did not. And it makes me angry because you could solve so many problems and so much frustration by doing those steps, and you have all the ingredients in front of me. What am I missing? I'll shut up now because I'm going back to the IHOP AI and how that should be important. Talk to me.
All right. So when Doug founded Duo Security over in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he used to attend several of the little startup events over in Detroit. So yes, I was very familiar with them, and we celebrated when they were. Well, we celebrated Doug when they were acquired by Cisco, because Cisco doesn't acquire things for innovation. Cisco buys products to monetize them further. And that is pretty much what's happened. They don't innovate, they just monetize. Now, back to Duo, though. Duo had a lot of opportunities to do better, you're right. But one of the things I want to point out, the term we learned over the last couple of years is MFA fatigue. And you're like, how can I get fatigued with MFA? That actually, when you think about it from a term, how does that make any sense? How could you possibly send me so many MFA notifications if I was even doing SMS that it would make sense that I would be so fatigued as to type them in? But when you say Duo, and Duo had this MFA fatigue because monkey see green button, monkey press green button. I don't know why. I don't know. Every time that button comes up, it's green, and I press the green one that says yes. This is what MFAT really is, because think about this from a user standpoint of Duo. Where they started was, hey, we want to make authentication easier. It's a big red button of green says yes, red says no. And all day at work, what are you doing? Every time I got to log in, press the green button, log in, press the green button. So what happens when your phone pops up? Green button. Well, you're standing in your kitchen, you're not logging in. And that. So I think that's one of where a lot of their flaws came, where they absolutely kind of got that far, but never went further. Next, the problem with Duo is by default, not everyone knows this, it is a fail open system by default unless you modify the registry. This is how the Red Cross got hacked circa 2018, 2019, was because someone hacked the DNS servers on their routers and put in 127.001 for all the Duo entries. So when they had the pass, look that up. You can find it. It's if you type in Duo fail open default, you'll find the registry key that you have to change. And this is one of those things. If they would have known it, all they would have had to do is sinkhole all the DNS entries for Duo, and it would have failed open to a lot of things
across the board.
Yeah,
you've
so really
taken all of you've bypassed all of it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But back to, I like things that are not tied to some cloud call API. So you give me TOTP, you take a great secret. We have a secret we know, and then something we know that's a constant changing. We know the time. So we have that secret, the TOTP auth key. I think that's a great choice. You held up a YubiKey, FIDO, auth, web 2, auth n. Awesome. Those are, I think, better standards because they do not require the extra, we're going to make a call out to here, because obviously this is what happens. Someone starts, using one of these quacking botnets to DDoS something, and next thing you know, and I don't really know the details in terms of like why Duo was down as much, but you've created a potential failure point because so many companies use it. It's so well used in the enterprise, and now that failure point has occurred, and here we are talking about it, and it disrupted business in a serious way.
But they could have gone so much further.
It's so much better.
Something you know, something you know, something you have, something you are. Why don't you have the Duo big green dot? Just do a biometric search and say, yes, you are, this is who you are, let's move forward. Okay, so you know what? We need to talk about this. What I want to do is I want to hear from the MSP community. What are you using for your MFA standard? What is your stack for your customers? Please, please, please just comment. There's so many places to comment. You can literally just text me on my phone. There's a whole bunch of stuff. As a matter of fact, while Ray's not here, just text Ray. He's going to go, what is happening? Why are all these people telling me about their MFA solutions? But we have Discord, we've got email, we've got phone calls. The recordings are awesome. Please send us what you're currently using, and we'll talk about that on the next show. But in the meantime, just to make time, we've got notables, and let's jump into it. Is that okay, Tom?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Microsoft announced today they'll be doing extended protection on by default with the Windows Exchange Server 2019 because it's still under active support. Now, this is wonderful to hear, but is it too little too late? Because Microsoft should have had this enabled from a long time ago. We've dealt with a lot of Exchange issues, and God be with you for any server admin that still has to administer this system. But I do like the progress we're making. Having better defaults is something we should always strive for. So I will not criticize Microsoft too much, other than they should have done it sooner. I'll still give them a dig there. Financial services companies breached by the result of the MOVEit zero-day vulnerability are facing a flurry of class action lawsuits over the exposure of sensitive customer financial data. This is going to be a really interesting case to watch because it's not like the intention of any of these financial companies was to have this data compromised. And MOVEit's a very popular software, not just used by the financial institutions, but used by many state and federal government bodies. So the question is going to be is who do we actually hold? The lawsuit will be facing the people that were affected who are using services such as Charles Schwab, who was in this lawsuit named. But the bigger question is, will they be able to pass this along and have MOVEit held responsible for, well, simply not doing a great job of testing it? Because where there was one SQL vulnerability, there turned out to be several. And now it brings into question of what does good software testing look like and how will that look in the court? That would be a really interesting case to follow. Stay tuned here. We'll have more news and updates as this news progresses on these type of lawsuits.
And jumping into my first notable mention from bleepingcomputer.com, in July 2023, Japan's Computer Emergency Response Team highlighted a MalDoc in PDF tactic where attackers embed malicious Word files inside PDFs to bypass detection. These files, termed polyglots, that's polyglots, can be interpreted as both PDF and Word documents. When opened as a Word document, it can trigger a malicious VBS macro. JPCERT, that's the Japan's Computer Emergency Response Team, didn't specify the malware type. Disabling the auto execution of macros in Microsoft Office protects against this particular issue. This embedding technique, though based on known polyglot methods, is deemed novel by JPCERT because traditional PDF tools might miss the threat. JPCERT has provided a detection tool to catch this in action. And in my next notable mention from 9to5mac.com, Microsoft is discontinuing Visual Studio for Mac, with support ending in August 2024. They will focus on enhancing Visual Studio and VS Code for cross-platform use. While new features won't be added to the Mac version, security and platform updates will be provided for 1 year. The 2022 Mac release saw significant upgrades, including Apple Silicon optimization. Post-discontinuation, Microsoft recommends using its IDE on a virtual Windows on Mac or the cloud. New tools like C#, DevKit, and .NET MAUI will support Mac OS. VS Code for Mac will continue to be available.
And now here's a story from this week's episode of AI Roundup. This article I spotted from the Register is by Katiana Quach, and the U.S. Air Force is planning to invest almost $6 billion for around 2,000 AI-powered pilotless drones known as the XQ-58A Valkyrie. These drones, each costing about $3 million, are intended to serve various roles alongside human pilots, thank God for that, such as surveillance, resupply, and combat. The plan requires congressional approval and is estimated to take between 5 and 10 years to develop drones capable of real air combat. Now, I can't get on board with this. I mean, I'm sure somebody that's more involved with military and all these kind of sectors that I have never touched on could give a better reasoning for this. But I think we need to leave the AI automation out of things that can kill people. That's just my opinion. I really hope, I don't like to tease the idea that Terminator could come true from all this stuff, but this is the one that freaks me out. And I know there's already other stuff going on there with war plans utilizing AI. So I know this isn't the first, but the more I hear it, the more discouraged I get. And now let's take a look at our listing of community and MMN events. Starting on September 6th through the 7th, an in-person event, Channel Pro SMB Summit in Boston, Massachusetts. Also starting on the 6th through the 8th, another in-person event, Marketopia Peer Groups Q3 in Clearwater Beach, Florida. On September 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Optimizing MSP Efficiencies, the Shift to Smarter Tools and Automation, presented by Channel Program. And then starting on the 7th through the 10th of September, our last in-person event, TechCon Unplugged in Woodbridge, New Jersey. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have later today at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, a new episode of 38 at 38 with Joe Purcell of Bell Technologics. And on Sunday at 7 p.m., another episode of MSP Community Live. Coming on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., Wins and Losses Episode 8 with special guest Frank DeLuca of the CTO Agency. And on Wednesday the 6th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, a very special episode of AI Roundup. And on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Tech Bar returns with special guest Megan Killian of MKC Agency. And as always, on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m., the MSP Dispatch presented by the MSP Media Network.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a jobaholic. We all have something in common. We all have a worst job story. Each episode, I'll welcome one guest to share their most insane worst job story. And in return, I'll share one of mine. Join me the first Friday of every month for new episodes of 38 at 38.
So how'd you like today's show? If you like it, please hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, go ahead and hit 2, 3, 4, whatever the odd number is for that, because then it goes back.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. And did you know that we also have a Discord where we post all of these stories? You can even propose your own stories, and we can vote on them to see which one comes up next. As I guess it's Ray's friend, Rich Banky, says, make sure you tell a friend about us. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. And if you have any questions, email us at news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode. We will read them out. Or just leave us a voicemail at 833-MSP-NETWORK. Tom, thank you so much for hosting today. We had a compressed schedule. I know you got to run, I got to run, and I'm going to go check on the IHOP menu because I think they're going to make some good suggestions. Wrap it up for us, Tom. Land this plane.
Pancakes sound good. That's how I'm going to land it.
Keep it simple.
I'm keeping it simple.
Thank you so much, Tom. And to everyone out there, please be safe.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
OpenAI is going to the major leagues. The DOJ decided to play Duck Hunt, and we have one big problem. It's Duo. These stories and much more on today's episode. Oh, so close. Episode. And you laughing right away. Okay, there you go. One more time. Post discontinuation. I'm going to do discontinuation. Okay, here we go. Post dis. Fuck me.